So as I get closer to finishing my first real SaaS application called DinnerBee, I find myself thinking more and more about how I'm actually going to price the thing. I've never really had an application with real paying users before, and so there's definitely a lot to consider about my type of application in particular and what's going to be the best pricing strategy for my customers. As I've been thinking about this, I've been doing a bunch of research into different types of pricing strategies and how different SaaS applications utilize them in their own businesses. And so I wanted to make a video kind of highlighting the different types of pricing strategies that I'm coming across. I've come up with a pretty comprehensive list of 5 different strategies that are being used across a variety of different verticals, and we're going to go through kind of the pros and cons of each of them, what types of businesses these pricing strategies would be best suited for. Definitely stick around until the end of the video because I'll be going over the exact pricing strategy that I'll be starting off with for DinnerBee. And I think this pricing strategy may or may not change over time, but this is what I'm going to start off with and do some testing and figure out what works. So like I said, we got 5 different strategies to go through. So let's hop right into the first one, which is going to be a free trial. Free trials definitely come in a few different flavors, but I want to talk about this first one in particular, which is going to be just a straight free trial. Maybe a user makes an account. They are able to use the app in its entirety for 7 days or something like that. Then they are required to pay in order to continue using it after that. I'd say the main draw with this strategy is you're able to get a ton of users this way. There's no barrier to entry for someone starting to use your application, and folks can really just get started right away. Most likely a credit card won't be required up front, so they can just make an account and then start using your app in its entirety. This is a great way to gather a ton of data up front. Maybe you're not super sure how users are going to interact with your application, if they're going to find it valuable, which features are they using the most. And this is a great way to get a bunch of people using it so you can figure all of that out without a ton of risk, because if things aren't really working how you expect them to, or users aren't using the features how they're supposed to, or you find bugs or anything like that, you can kind of just deal with all these problems as they come up and not have a ton of paying users that are unhappy and angry while you're trying to fix things. From doing some research on other folks who are building SaaS applications and have implemented this free model, I've heard that conversion rates aren't super high converting free users into paid users. Likely it's anywhere from like 1 to 5% and sometimes even lower than that. So you might get super excited, you see all of these free users coming into your application. You're like, oh, this is awesome. I'm finally going to have a user base and all these people are going to convert into paid users. But historically, that's not really the case. And I think for that reason, this strategy is becoming less and less popular. Though I still do think it is a good idea if you have something really small or you're really just trying to validate an idea and gather some data really quickly. This full access free plan might be a great option for you. So the second pricing strategy is a twist on the first free plan. And this is going to be a free plan with limited features. So instead of giving your users the entirety of your app up front for maybe a 7-day window or something like that, you're going to give them an indefinitely long period of a free account that has limited features, maybe only like 1 or 2 core features that they can use, but anything additional will require upgrading to some kind of paid plan. This strategy is great for just getting people introduced to your app and showing them the benefits that it can have for whatever their problem is. You normally have to be pretty strategic in which features you are giving them access to. An example of this in my own application, for example, could be that they're able to create these schedules for what kind of meals they're going to be eating throughout the week. And so a user might have a dinner calendar or a lunch calendar, things like that. And a limited feature of this could be maybe a user is only able to create 1 calendar. Users in my application are also able to invite guest users to their calendar so they can see all these if they have like a roommate or a significant other that they live with, and both of these folks need to be able to see the calendar. Maybe a limited feature is they're not able to do that, and this feature is only available if they upgrade to a paid plan. Finally, users are also able to create recipes and store those and access them at any time, but maybe on a free plan, instead of being able to create unlimited recipes, they're only able to create like 5 to 10. Again, this strategy is really good for getting a lot of users without the risk of having them being paid users, and maybe things just weren't working as you expected them to. So if you're trying to gather more data and see if these core features that you're offering as part of the free plan are actually very valuable, this can be a great way to gather that data. And if folks are upgrading to the more premium version of your application, then it does validate that the premium features are worth it for them. But this may take some tweaking and testing to figure out which features are suitable for that free plan and which ones do require a paid activation. Moving on to the third pricing strategy, And I do think that this one is often used in conjunction with the second one, which is some type of recurring subscription. Oftentimes you'll see some type of tiered system. So for example, the lowest tier could be that free plan that I was talking about before with limited features, but then a middle tier might be something like a monthly subscription. And then all the way on the high end tier is a yearly subscription. All of these subscriptions can potentially have different features involved with them, but for simplicity's sake, it can be really nice for a user to not have to make decisions about what features you're going to use. Give a user a specific plan and highlight that one as the best one for them. They're way more likely to choose that plan. The more options that you give somebody when they're at checkout, it's just going to fluster them, honestly. So if you can simplify things as much as possible, I think that's always going to be in your best interest. When we're talking about these subscriptions, maybe it's monthly, maybe it's yearly. I've definitely even seen weekly subscriptions as well. We'll normally see some type of discount the larger the time interval is. So for example, if you're doing a week-long subscription and it's $20 a week, you might see that the month-long subscription is only like $50 a month or something like that. And the year-long subscription might be $400 to $500 for the year. Of course, one of the things that we have to think about in terms of generating income from our SaaS business is, what is our churn rate like? This is the amount of users that come into our application, start paying for it, and then leave eventually, because that is unfortunately just a part of business in general. Ideally, we can keep users on for as long as possible, and having options like a year-long subscription is a great way to guarantee that out of the box. Obviously, we hope that the user continues to use the service all the way throughout the year, but it's definitely possible that they don't. And if they were on the month-long subscription, well, they could have canceled at any time, but now they're locked into the year-long subscription, and we have guaranteed revenue that we can count on throughout the rest of the year. Obviously, you might have some kind of refund policy or something like that, but I'll leave that up to you. So just to reiterate on this strategy, I really do think it is important to simplify the offering between pricing plans as much as possible. So if you can offer the same amount of features in a monthly plan and a yearly plan, I think that's the best bet. And then just have different prices for those two is really going to simplify the experience for the user and just lessen the amount of decisions that they have to make. If you want to simplify things for the user even more, and honestly for yourself, you can go with pricing strategy number 4, which is just a flat one-time payment. I think a lot of times when we think about SaaS businesses, we think about that MRR, the monthly recurring revenue. And like, that's the sexy figure in all of SaaS. Everybody wants the highest MRR and they want to showcase that to the next person. But when you think about it from a user's perspective, at any given time, a user has so many different subscriptions. They have, whatever music streaming platform they're listening to, or the TV streaming platform, their phone bill, all these kind of things are monthly expenses that maybe they're just constantly thinking of. And the last thing that they want to do is add another monthly expense on top of that. So what if we gave them an option to just buy it outright, and then they have access to the software forever? This is a really exciting avenue for me as a consumer and as someone who's trying to sell software. And I think it's definitely a strategy that I'm going to test a good amount in my own business. There are two main things here that you do have to consider though. The first is you have to make sure that you're pricing your one-time fee at a price that is never going to make you lose money on a customer. An example of this in my application that I am thinking about is in terms of data storage, essentially. So how many recipes would a user have to create for my server costs to be more than that person paid in the one-time payment? Same goes for any other data that is getting stored to my databases, but everything else is just text, so that should be very, very marginal. So it's really just pictures that I'm thinking of. But if your application stores other types of things for a user, like videos, for example, those can get expensive really fast. So these are thoughts that you want to have before you come up with your pricing strategy. Is a user going to take so many actions against maybe a public API that I have to pay for, or some kind of server hosting costs that at some point that customer will be unprofitable for me? And if there are very obvious scenarios like this, then you may want to avoid this pricing strategy and go with a monthly or yearly subscription instead. The second thing to consider with this pricing strategy is we have this other business term called the lifetime value, or LTV, of a customer. And when you're first starting off, you don't really know what this number is going to be. You can take guesses, but honestly, even an estimation is going to be hard to come up with. But this is essentially how much is a customer worth to you over the course of the lifetime of them either subscribing to your application or being a user. When we're talking about the recurring subscription model, we can take the price that it costs the user to pay for it every single month and then multiply that by the amount of months that they use the application. And this goes back to that churn rate that I was talking about before. So if your average user uses the application for 4 months, then the lifetime value of that customer is $80. At some point, once we've gathered enough data about how long customers are using our application, we can come up with an accurate number for our LTV. And what you might find is that over the course of a customer's lifetime, they are paying more with the subscription model. So maybe, they last 4 months, that's $80, but your one-time payment was only $50. So these are kind of just some considerations that you have to make, and it's kind of hard to make decisions with no data to back them up. But ideally, once you are able to gather enough data, you can make smarter decisions on which one makes more sense of the one-time payment or the recurring subscription model. There is honestly one more thing to consider here, and that is there a stark difference in the conversion rate of someone buying the monthly subscription versus the one-time payment? I think this is a great split test to do as well, because if you find that users are way more likely to buy the product at a one-time value price, then it's going to make way more sense for you to go that route, possibly even if the lifetime value of a customer is greater on the subscription route. If you're getting way more conversions and purchases off of the one-time payment route, it might make sense to go that way. So there's definitely a lot of numbers to juggle with here. But I think that's really an exciting thing about SaaS applications is you can go out and get all this data, and then you can make informed decisions that are going to increase the success rate of your business based off of all that data. So like I said, in the beginning, it's tough to know all of this, but keep these thoughts in the back of your mind as you're gathering more data. Alrighty, so the final pricing strategy that I came up with is a usage-based pricing model. And this has seen an increase in popularity, especially in AI wrapper type of SaaS applications. So essentially a user will be billed off of how much they use the product. This is mostly to mitigate the risk of, like I was talking about before, a customer not being worth it to a business owner and costing more than it would to acquire them. For example, making invocations to the OpenAI API is going to cost some amount of money, and we want to make sure that we're always charging the customer more than it costs us to make that invocation. And a lot of the time this comes in the form of credits, so it'll cost a customer X amount of credits to make an API request. They don't know about the API request. Maybe it's just like, oh, generate an image, and it's going to cost X amount of credits. And then we'll give them some kind of option to get more credits. That could be through some kind of monthly subscription. You get 10,000 credits every single month, or through a one-time payment, you're able to buy different quantities of credits all at once. Alrighty, now that we've got all of the pricing strategies out of the way, I want to talk about the decision that I think I've come to for my application Dinnerbee. And this is going to be something that I'm really open to test and figure out as I gather more data. But to start off with, I'm going to go with a combination of a monthly subscription and a one-time payment. Both of these options will have full access to all of the features of the application. I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do for exact prices yet. I don't think it's going to be a ton. It'll probably be like somewhere in the $5 to $10 a month range for the monthly subscription, and then the one-time payment maybe around like $49. Like I said, I got to do some thinking about those numbers, and obviously as I gather more data, we'll be able to adjust those numbers and hopefully make good informed decisions. That'll wrap up this video though. I hope you were able to learn something new about either a new pricing strategy or a new scenario where it makes sense to utilize one of those pricing strategies. If I missed any, definitely let me know down below in the comments. I'm always happy to learn more about pricing strategies and everything about SaaS, honestly. If you're building a SaaS application, or you're just interested in the SaaS world in general, definitely subscribe and like the video. I will be pumping out a ton more videos just like this and progress updates about my application Dinnerbee as they come. Just want to thank you a ton for watching all the way through. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and I will see you soon.